So a few weeks ago, I hopped on IMDb to check out the list of movies coming out in the next year so that I would have an idea of what movies are coming out so that I know what movies I need to watch, compare that against my collection, and find out what movies I need to buy so that I can watch them before the upcoming release. Happened to see a film on there called Snake Eyes, had no idea what that was, so I didn't bother with it, moved on. A couple days later, I'm sitting in the theater getting ready to see F9, the first movie I went back to theaters for. And there's a trailer, but at the end the title says Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins. And I think, oh, this is another G.I. Joe movie. I don't know how many of those there are. I haven't seen any of them. I'm not part of the G.I. Joe fandom. But this seems like the type of movie that I would enjoy. You know, comic book type storylines. Somewhere between realistic and superpowered, action movie. And apparently it's still going. So I got home, looked up, found out there are 2 movies, Rise of Cobra and Retaliation. So I was like, that's not too bad. Found a 2-pack online, ordered it, and then I don't know exactly what I was doing. I guess I was kind of looking up just more information about the movie. I don't seek out trailers and stuff like that, but I guess I just wanted to know, where it fell at, because it was called Origins, so I assumed it was a prequel, but kind of wanted to see where it lined up. And it says it's a reboot. So I'm like, okay, did I need to buy these things? Do I need to watch them? And in the end, I decided to watch them, so at least I have another G.I. Joe movie to compare it to. But it seems like, at this point, it's not really going to be connected to these ones. There are multiple characters that are recast. But today, I watched both G.I. Joe movies. And man, let me tell you, they are not for me. Now, I don't want to bang on them too hard. I'm sure someone out there, this is what they're into, right? And I don't want to hate on anybody for being into what they're into. I'm a big fan of Marvel movies personally. Someone is probably a really big fan of G.I. Joe. And hey man, good on you. But that someone ain't me. I watched both movies back to back. And both of them, I had to take a break in the middle. Because it was just, the worst thing an action movie can be is boring. And both of these movies were boring. Now, I don't know how much more I would have enjoyed it if I knew the IP, if I knew, the mythology and the storyline behind it. I've read since I watched them that it didn't really follow that stuff. So, I don't know if that would have helped or not. But, I think of the MCU, and there are some characters like Iron Man and Captain America and Spider-Man and the Hulk that I read comics of those characters when I was a kid. I had, a huge backlog of knowledge about them that played a part in my enjoyment of those films. But then there were other things like Ant-Man that I hadn't really read that much stuff of. Doctor Strange I had hardly read any of. Black Panther I had not read hardly any of. And Guardians of the Galaxy, which I had never even heard of before that movie was announced. But all of those I still enjoyed. And I think part of it comes down to the writing. And I think part of it comes down to the acting. And I think part of it comes down to how the movie introduces the characters, especially something like Guardians of the Galaxy, which has a lot of characters, like the G.I. Joe movies. But honestly, I think a big part of it is the color. Because I'm watching these G.I. Joe movies, and there's so many characters, so it's hard for me to keep track of who's who. They've all got weird names, so I can't remember their names. But they're all dressed identically. In the first film, they're all dressed in this black tactical gear. And the second film, there's military outfits and stuff like that. And I'm seeing these scenes where I see guys fighting each other, and I was like, aren't they on the same team? And by the time I figure out what's happened, it's moved on and I've missed something else. There's a reason that bright colors work in superhero movies. It's very easy to tell who's who. Generally, heroes wear primary colors and villains wear secondary colors. I guess that makes me a villain. I got orange shorts and a green shirt on. But it was very hard for me to follow what was going on. And I tried to do my best. You know, if I knew I missed something, I would rewind it and I would go back. But I didn't care. Because I didn't care about the characters because I didn't really know who they were. Second one I thought did a little bit better. Because at the very beginning of the movie, it just takes a minute to show you and tell you the names of all the main characters, which I found helpful. Second movie also had The Rock, who is pretty easy to watch. But I made a list here of the actors. The star power in these movies, I should be loving these. Channing Tatum, very charming guy, very pleasant to watch in most things I've seen them in. Dead as a doornail in these movies, and I read about it. He hated the movie. He didn't want to be in it. He didn't want to do it. He had to do it as part of his contract, and you can tell that he doesn't want to be there. He was one of the few people that came back for the second one, and he's barely in it. Marlon Wayans. Now, I don't know much about Marlon specifically, but the Wayans brothers are famous for their comedy. I barely laughed at anything this guy did. Most of what he did was continue to hit on a girl that didn't show any interest in him. Of course, the movie ends up with them getting together, but that's not funny. That's not a guy that I want to root for. Dennis Quaid. Man, Frequency, when I was a kid, was one of the big movies that I rewatched with my dad a lot. Dennis Quaid has stuck with me ever since that. Big fan of Dennis Quaid. Nothing. Ray Park, Star Wars, which I wasn't into much when I was younger, but the X-Men movies with Toad, big fan of Ray Park. You don't even get to see him, which I guess sometimes that's Ray Park's deal. But his character doesn't talk, which I get is like part of the character, but it's hard for me to care about a character. I'll come back to him. Brendan Fraser, apparently, reportedly, begged to be in this movie. No idea why. He does nothing, and it's not a good movie. But hey, you got your wish. Good job, Brendan Fraser. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, another charming guy, fun to watch in a lot of things. I don't love The Dark Knight Rises, but he's fine in it. I'm going to come back to him, too. Christopher Eccleston, not sure how to pronounce his last name. The little teeny tiny bit of Doctor Who that I've seen had him in it. Wasn't a fan of that. But, you know, even though Thor the Dark World is one of the weaker movies in the MCU, my boy Chris, he's there, right? I want to like this guy. He hated the movie. He didn't want to be there. He didn't enjoy it. Arnold Vosloo, the Mummy himself. Brendan Fraser and the Mummy back at it again. He was fun to see, and his little bit coming in the middle and then coming back at the end where you realize what the plan is. That was one of the better parts of the whole movie, but it was just a teeny tiny little bit. Jonathan Pryce, Governor Swan himself from my beloved Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Or whatever Bond movie he's in. Pierce Brosnan era. Again, I want to like this guy. He plays a fine president, but it's not enough. And then looking at the characters that return for the second movie, Channing Tatum, barely in the second movie. Ray Park, one of the few people came back, but you never even see his face. Now, the characters that Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Christopher Eccleston play come back, but they're played by new people because those actors didn't want to be in the new movie. Arnold Vosloo, he's in I think literally less than 3 seconds with his actual face in the second movie. His character's back, but he barely did anything in the second one. Jonathan Pryce is the only main guy who you see his face that returns, other than Storm Shadow. Now, I didn't recognize that actor, but it's like, when the main returning cast members are the villains, that's kind of weird. Now, maybe you could have, made a play on that, and that could have been something unique about this franchise, but it's called G.I. Joe. It's supposed to be about the heroes, but our returning faces are the villains. That's not a good sign for your movie franchise, when your heroes don't want to come back. And Storm Shadow, oh my goodness, I could not for the life of me remember his name. Every time they said it, it would immediately get lost. And so in my head, I just started calling him Steel Toe Boots, because I knew it started with an S. For some reason, I wanted to keep going to Steel Serpent, because they kept talking about Cobras. And I don't know if Steel Serpent is another thing that just found its way into my brain, or if that just went with the alliteration. But between that, I knew that was wrong, but I knew it started with an S. So I just started calling him Steel Toe Boots in my head. And then I had to write it down for this Storm Shadow. I wanted to like this movie. There's so many actors. That's just the first one. Second one, we get The Rock. I love The Rock. That was probably the easiest stuff for me to watch, was The Rock and Adriana Palicki, who is my girl Mockingbird from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., among other things. I've got the unreleased Wonder Woman pilot up high that she starred in. And I want to say she was in the unreleased Aquaman pilot also. I might be confusing her with someone else. Anyway, she's been around. Ray Stevenson. Both Volstagg in the MCU and Punisher in Punisher Warzone. Elodie Young, my girl Elektra from the Daredevil series. I've met her. Let me go grab it. Let me get the prop. Look at that. Me and Elodie Young right there. Met her. Still not enough to save this movie. Bruce Willis. I mean, what can I say about Bruce Willis that hasn't been said already? He's there. Right? He got paid to be there. Walton Goggins. Only thing I know him from is Ant-Man and the Wasp. So when he popped up, I was just like, hey, it's that bad guy. These movies are not very good. The special effects aren't great. I didn't notice any big problems in the second one. The first one, though, the scene where they're in the little suits and they're running through the streets, it looks like garbage. The second one I didn't notice any big issues with. That might be because less than halfway through, I picked it up to 1.5 speed. Now, I've mentioned in another video, a lot of things that if I'm rewatching them, or if I'm watching a TV show that has to be a certain length, I'll do 1.5 speed. So I'm kind of accustomed to watching things that speed. But usually if I'm watching a movie that I haven't seen before, I assume the movie is as long as it needs to be, and I should watch at normal speed, but it was too boring. I first checked the time in the second movie less than an hour in, hoping that I was at the end. By the time I checked it again, I think I was just barely over halfway, and then the third time I checked it, I had to take a break because it had not gotten very much farther. And then after I took a break, I bumped it up to 1.5 to finish it out. And here's what I don't understand. I looked it up. I was like, how much did these movies make that they're still making them? Because they're not good. Right? Again, I'm sure someone out there, this is their movie, and I'm happy for you, man. Right? Nothing against you. But I looked it up. Budget for the first film, $175 million. And the thing that people say is that usually marketing is the same, right? So you double that, and that's your total budget. So 175 twice over is 350, if my math is correct, which it may or may not be. Now maybe the marketing budget wasn't completely that much, but somewhere around 300, 350. The movie only made $302 million, which means it probably lost money. So then why did they make a sequel? I don't know. Sequel though, budget went down. It's reported 130 to 155. Profits went up. We made it to 375. So now we're making a little bit of money. Not a ton though. So I can kind of see why, if they're going to do a third one, I can see why the second one is so different from the first one. right? Because they realized that that was not going to work. You bring in more pleasing people to watch, like The Rock and Adriana Pilecki. Bruce Willis, I guess, draws a crowd. But even that didn't do great. So I understand wanting to go in a new direction again. But the whole, if anyone other than Duke and Ripcord, if anyone gets an origin in these movies, I guess, and the Baroness. But Snake Eyes gets the flashbacks. I guess Duke and the Baroness do too. I'm just talking in circles right now. But point is, Snake Eyes is pretty established in these movies. I'm pretty sure he has flashbacks in both of them. If not, then he's got 2 in the first one. So he kind of seems like the weirdest one to then go and make an origin movie for when we saw his origin. And it completely conflicts with the vow of silence that they talk about in these movies. So to me, it seems like this one is not connected at all. They're calling it, part of the franchise overall, but it's not part of the series. And I don't know. I feel like maybe I would have been more interested in seeing a younger actor cast as Bruce Willis, right? He's apparently the Joe that they're all named for. Show us that. Show us the start. Give us a G.I. Joe origin movie. Not a G.I. Joe Origins Snake Eye movie. Show us how G.I. Joe started, right? Maybe that's interesting. Focus on the heroes rather than Cobra. I gave it an honest go. Now I know why I never got into these movies. I guess I never really heard people talk about them that much because they weren't very good. I don't know what else to say about these. Oh my gosh. Okay, one last second movie. Elodie Young stars as Jinx, who is the cousin of Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow? Steel Toe Boots. She's Storm Shadow's cousin. And the way we know that is because Blind Master says, Jinx, cousin of Storm Shadow. Like, holy cow. How much more beating you over the head can they be? I mean, it's bad enough when movies are like, this person, son of this person, or that person, brother of this person. But man, to just pull a cousin out of there, that was the point where I realized, I'm like, this movie knows that I don't know who any of these people are, and they're not even going to try to be clever with explaining it to me, right? Could have been a line of dialogue like, oh, I need to stop my cousin, blah, blah, blah. That would have worked. Just as easy. Would have made way more sense, would have sounded way more natural. I will probably never watch these movies again, and I'm okay with that. But I'm going to stop complaining about them now. Hopefully, this new one will be better. I'm hoping they budgeted it lower, although it looks pretty expensive in the trailers. So I don't know, but I think they save a lot of money on the cast. I didn't recognize, I don't think, anyone. I haven't really been paying attention, but I don't remember recognizing anyone in the trailers. So that Rock money, that Bruce Willis money, that Walton Goggins money, hopefully that was better spent somewhere else. So I'll go see it. I've got super low expectations. But usually that means that I like something more than I thought I would. So low expectations. Fingers crossed. Those are my thoughts on G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra and G.I. Joe Retaliation. Have you seen them? What do you think about them? Do you agree with what I said? That's all I've got. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.